The man who laughed loudest was named Gerald Finch. I know this because I asked afterward, and the name is important to me even now, not as an object of bitterness, but because memory without a name has a way of becoming a symbol, and Gerald Finch was not a symbol. He was a 43-year-old account manager from Bristol who had booked the Saturday tour through the Palace grounds and decided at 11:52 on a gray Wednesday morning that the guard at the North Gate was there for his entertainment. My name is Lance Corporal Peter Ashby, and I had been posted at that gate for 2 hours and 14 minutes when Gerald Finch walked by, stopped, looked me up and down with the long, deliberate inspection of a man who has decided he is conducting an evaluation, and said to the woman beside him, his wife I later understood, "Look at this, 11 quid to stand here and wear a hat." He was referring to what he thought was my salary. He was wrong about the figure, but that is not the relevant point. He then took a photograph of me from approximately 18 inches away. Then he said to the general public standing nearby, "Go on, son, move, do something." I did not move. This is the job. The job is stillness. Then he flicked a coin at my feet. I want to be precise about what I mean by flicked. He did not throw it. He took a coin, a 2-pence piece, I found out later, from his jacket pocket with 2 fingers, and let it fall from waist height, so that it struck the flagstone near my right boot and rolled against the toe cap. Then he waited to see what I would do. I did nothing. This also is the job. He laughed. Several people nearby shifted or looked away. His wife touched his arm and he shook her off. He turned back to me and said very clearly, as though uncertain whether I had heard the first time, "Toy soldier, I am going to tell you what happened next, and then I am going to tell you what I knew that Gerald Finch did not know, because the second part is the part that matters. What happened next is this. Nothing. I stood at my post. Gerald Finch, satisfied apparently with the demonstration he had provided to the Saturday tour, took 2 more photographs and moved along with the group toward the East Garden. The coin remained at my boot. A child from the tour group picked it up about 4 minutes later and looked at me, and I gave the child the very slight nod that my training allows in situations involving minors, and she pocketed it and ran back to her family. I stood at my post for another 3 hours and 46 minutes. Then my relief arrived and I stepped off, and I went through the standard end-of-post protocol and turned in my equipment and walked to the mess. At the mess I sat down next to Corporal Frederick Ward, who had been posted at the south entrance and who had seen Gerald Finch's performance from approximately 60 meters away. Ward said, "Finch, account manager from Bristol." I said, "Did you look him up?" Ward shook his head. "Didn't need to. Regiment already had him." I didn't understand that at first. Then Ward explained. Gerald Finch, account manager, tour visitor, coin flipper, had been, 16 years previously, a candidate for selection into the regiment's counterterrorism unit. He had washed out on the penultimate evaluation. He knew, in other words, exactly what the regiment was. He knew somewhere in his education what the men behind the bearskins had done before they stood at gates. He had not coincidentally wandered into contempt. He had walked into it fully briefed. I didn't know what to do with that information. Ward said, "Does it change anything?" I thought about it. "No," I said. Ward nodded as if that was the right answer, and I think it was. What I have not told you yet, what Finch also did not know, was what was in my service file. Before I was posted to ceremonial duties, I spent 27 months in a role I am not permitted to describe in specific terms, working in a unit whose name I am not permitted to use, in 3 countries whose names I would prefer not to include here, even generically. I can tell you that I completed that assignment with a commendation that was classified, meaning it does not appear on any publicly accessible version of my record, meaning Gerald Finch could not have known it existed, meaning when he called me a toy soldier, he was speaking from a position of complete informational disadvantage. He thought he was looking at a decoration. He was looking at someone who had stood in rooms where the cost of stillness was considerably higher than it is at a palace gate in autumn. I do not say this with pride. Pride is not the point. The point is the distance between what Gerald Finch was able to see and what he was not able to see, and how much of the world fits in that gap. The coin at my boot was worth 2 pence. The commendation in my file, the one he didn't know about, the one that explains why I can stand still in front of a man conducting his entertainment at my expense, without feeling what he wanted me to feel, was not worth any amount he would have understood. I still think about the child who picked up the coin, though. She held it up and looked at me, and I gave her the nod, and she ran. That was the correct transaction. The rest of it was noise. I have stood at many posts since then. Gerald Finch has, I presume, booked other tours. The regiment continues its work, some of it visible and some of it not, and the distance between those two categories is exactly as large as it has always been, and exactly as necessary. Toy soldier. He was looking in exactly the right direction. He was missing everything he was looking at.